Great. Are we live?
We are live.
We are live. Great. My name is Mark James, and with Cypress Real Estate Partners, and on behalf of the Columbia Chamber and the Chamber Public Policy Committee, welcome to the August 4th, 2020 Issues Forum. And our topic for today's forum is let's see, higher education's path forward, managing beyond the COVID. So welcome to everybody. We've got a great attendance and very pleased with the folks that have decided to be with us this morning. And hopefully today will be a nice day. It was, we really, in South Carolina, dodged a good bullet on the coast and are grateful for that today. It would be a mess to be having that on the back of our mind as we enter into this meeting. So we are fortunate today to have the leaders of three of Columbia's most prominent institutions of higher education, and we're looking forward to a great discussion on their efforts and challenges and opportunities as they confront the end of summer and the beginning of the school year, and the things that they're having to do. There's a lot of discussion out there about the path forward, and different groups are doing different things and in different ways. Our focus today is not really so much on the merits of online versus in person, as much as it is the considerations. These schools have made their decision and how they're going to do it. They're going to let us know what those are, and then also tell us, really from a business standpoint, the impact that it's having on the schools as well as our community. We are a community and an economy that is heavily impacted by our higher education presence in Columbia, and it's an important part of what drives our economy. So this is a real pertinent conversation for us to have here in the early August, as these schools get ready to go back and are ready to do so. Our three guests today, first is Dr. Roslyn Artis. She is the president of Benedict College. She comes to Columbia from South Florida, where she was also the president of a college there. Her education, she attended Vanderbilt to receive a doctorate in higher education leadership, and has a law degree from West Virginia and a bachelor's degree from West Virginia State. Small piece of information that I learned about her is that she practiced, had a legal career before she got into higher education. So nice experience there, and probably a lot of parallels in ways that have been helpful to her. She is recognized for her innovative and creative ways to tackle challenges in higher education, and has done so specifically at Benedict in some real creative ways. And she's active in the Columbia community and is well known to many of us here. And we're pleased to have her with us. Our next guest is Colonel Mark Bieger. He's the Chief of Staff for University of South Carolina. He joined USC in January after serving as Chief of Staff at West Point, and certainly has a trial by fire, joining us in January and having all this stuff kind of come to the top of the list in March. And that's certainly a background and experience in planning and leadership of large organizations and communications. His skills there have certainly been put to the test. But we're glad to have him here. This is his second stint in Columbia. Very impressed that he was willing to come back after 2012 to 2014 stay at Fort Jackson. I'm sure that was a good experience, and we're glad to have him here. He's a decorated combat veteran, Army Ranger, native of Arizona, which maybe explains his attraction to the heat in Columbia, and is a 1991 graduate of military academy, U.S. Military Academy at West Point. And then our third guest is no stranger to us at the Chamber. Dr. Ron Rhames is president of Midlands Technical College, has had that position since 2015. He's been employed by Midlands Tech since 1990 and is also a graduate of Midlands Tech prior to receiving a master's degree and his doctorate. He's no stranger to us here in the Columbia community and is well known for not only his activities in the Columbia community, but also with the Chamber. So we're pleased to have all three here with us today, and I look forward to a good spirited discussion. I'm going to start us off with some questions. We have a chat room, I guess not room, but a capacity on the Zoom call where you can send a question in if you've got it. Please feel free to do so. Those will be received by Rose Dangerfield at the Chamber, and periodically we'll go to those questions from the group to get your questions answered. So it gets a little awkward on these video calls trying to coordinate answers among the panelists, but we're going to do the best we can. The first question, and I'll go to Dr. Ardis with this, and then would ask that Colonel Bieger and Ron Rhames answer as well. Can each of you briefly describe your plan for restarting classes this fall, and how are you handling the calendar, both kind of throughout the day as well as we've got, fall breaks and Christmas breaks and Thanksgiving breaks and things like that. Can you give us some description of how you're handling that right now?
Certainly. Good morning. Thank you for having me and Benedict College. At Benedict, we modified our calendar very, very early on. We are effectively underway. Yesterday was the first day of move-in on the main campus, and we'll proceed with that process for the remainder of the week. Classes start on Monday, August 10th. We will forego any breaks at all, no Labor Day, no fall break, and we'll actually conclude our semester in person on October 30th with students taking final exams during the first 2 weeks of November virtually. And so we will effectively clear the campus by the end of October. It's a 12-week semester, 90 days on the ground, and then students will go home for the break, for an extended break. We do not anticipate reopening until perhaps the third week of January, giving us as much time as possible to really Monday morning quarterback, if you will, the fall things that occurred, the method of populating the campus. While the students are there, they will be matriculating in a hybrid format, which means about half capacity. We're populating the campus at half capacity. And then for in-person courses, students will be divided into Alpha Bravo Charlie teams, and depending on their schedule, they will attend some in-person instruction, but primarily matriculate online.
Great. Colonel Bieger?
Thanks, Mark. Good morning, and thanks for the invitation to join this morning. Please call me Mark, though, if that's all right. We've actually started our reopening early this summer with some of our summer programs. So we called it a transitional phased reopening over the course of the summer. And the reason I mention that is we spent a lot of time looking very closely at our risk mitigation measures, our infrastructure, our policies and procedures to learn over the course of the summer and to better prepare for the opening of the academic year. So we'll start on the first day of class will be the August 20th. Students are already arriving, moving in off campus, and we'll see the vast majority of them move on campus, the few days of the week or so before that first day of classes start. We'll proceed with the semester, no fall break, and we will wrap up all of our in-person instruction or research at Thanksgiving weekend. So we project that we will be mostly clear of the campus in the area coming back out of Thanksgiving weekend going into the month of December.
Right.
So at Midlands, we started our reopening in the summer as well, where we brought in a limited number of students to campus, focusing mostly on the labs and hands-on learning, if you will. For the fall, we've not changed our calendar. What we've done, though, is that classes are scheduled to start on the 24th, and that's what we anticipate. We are planning, though, to have about half and half students on campus, spread out throughout our 6 campuses in the community that we serve. We've offered a mix of type of programming ranging from the on ground. We're doing a hybrid. We're also doing a virtual, and we define virtual as you have classes scheduled at a certain time and you meet at that time, but you do it in the online format. And then we have the traditional online process where students sign up and their assignments and other things that they have to do are delivered at a certain time. So we have a mix. We expect that about half of our students will be on ground, if you will, and the other half will be in a virtual online process.
Great. Sounds like a lot of planning went into to all 3 of your schools. What impact, I mean, you know, whether it's the virus or whether it's the modified college experience and the calendar, what changes have you seen in your enrollment numbers for this fall, maybe versus prior year, as well as sort of what you were anticipating for on campus?
So at Benedict College, we are, as I indicated earlier, populating the main campus to the tune of about 50%. So we'll have about 950 students, where we typically have about 1,850 living on the campus. Total enrollment of about 2,200. This year, we anticipate between 1,800 and 1,900 by the end of the week. And so we're seeing about an 18% overall decrease in enrollment, whether that's in-seat or online. And then again, the on-campus census is quite literally 50% of what it ordinarily would be. And that is a function of our decision-making process. As we think about social distance, as we think about the ability to spread kids out and to matriculate in a safe way, we did not believe we could fully populate the campus and ensure the safety of our student body. And so as we look at, again, residency, 50% overall enrollment, about an 18% increase for us. And that was certainly not unanticipated. We've been watching that throughout the summer, and of course have accounted for that from a budget standpoint.
Okay, right.
Here at the University of South Carolina, we're anticipating about 33,000 here in Columbia, which is basically equal to these our previous couple years. We've been watching it, like everybody, very closely over the course of the summer, and with about 33,000 registered, you know, we may pick up a few more in the weeks before the first day of class. We may lose a few more, but we're anticipating a pretty strong group. That includes, and thankfully, a strong international class or classes that are either returning or joining us for their first year. So a good, you know, strong international presence. And our graduate students are actually up in many of the programs. So as we've been looking at, you know, all the planning and all the detail that went into ensuring that we could take care of this population, we felt that a combination of the great resources here in Columbia, but also our student health services here on campus, and a couple of buildings that we were able to free up, give us the capacity, you know, really to bring on these numbers onto the campus here in August, and then care for them should the virus present itself. And the virus, you know, most likely will present itself. But we feel pretty confident, and we've looked at this from about every perspective possible to be able to care for those numbers coming on. But we're really excited about the students that'll be rejoining us here in a couple weeks.
Mark, I'm going to ask just real quick while you're here. Are you seeing any difference in the percentage of in-state versus out-of-state enrollment?
Yes, sir. We are. And this has improved a little bit, but early in the summer, it was definitely a higher percentage of in-state compared to out-of-state. Years past, we've been about anywhere from 49-51 balance, and give or take a percentage or two between out of state and in state. That balance shifted. We're probably closer to 60-40 at this point. But we did see a shift. So the majority of our students are coming at increasing numbers from in-state.
Okay, great. Dr. Rhames?
Yeah, at Midlands, our enrollment is divided into two parts. We have approximately 30,000 students. About half of those students are in our traditional academic classes, and the other half is in our corporate and continuing education. And so because of the differences in the way those classes are lined up, at this time, we're anticipating that the numbers are going to be about even. Looking at the early enrollments for the academic courses, the numbers are running about where they were last year at this time. The continuing education courses that we offer to business and others are a little bit more difficult to predict because those classes are oftentimes one-time, short-term training classes, if you will. But currently, we are encouraged that the numbers are going to look good. And in terms of our enrollment, we're doing a lot of things to accommodate students, to ensure them. And I think the biggest thing that we've had to do is the amount of communication that is required to make sure that students and parents and others are informed in this process. And I think my colleagues would agree that this situation is so volatile, it changes almost every second. And so you just have to be prepared to react. And we think that we've put in place the process to allow us to be flexible as students come back to campus.
Great. Can you talk a little bit, each of you talk a little bit about the impact these enrollment changes, safety precautions are having on your operating budgets?
Going up.
Big smile, I see a big smile. Dr. Rhames, why don't you go first?
Yeah, I mean, the amount of energy and time and resources that you have to spend in to put in the proper protocol is definitely an expense that we have to react to. The other thing that's a big challenge for us is that community colleges like Midlands, we have traditionally small classrooms. Most of our classrooms are outfitted for 30 students or less. And so that means that we have to figure out how to accommodate students in a safe way with the 6 feet requirements and those kinds of things, and deploying technology, a whole lot of other resources to make those kinds of things happen. And they come with a price tag. We're having to bring in additional people, the things that you hear about all the time, the sanitizers, the signage, and all those kinds of things, you know, they come with a price tag. And so the cost in terms of the budget is definitely an increase.
Mark?
Well, I'd say, so I'm just reflecting on the last 5 or 6 months, and we have spent an incredible amount of time looking at the health, safety, and welfare of not only our students, but our faculty and our staff. One of the real incredible parts of this university is the fact that within our colleges, we have so much depth of expertise. The Arnold School of Public Health, our business school, our College of Engineering, our schools of medicine. I mean, the list goes on and on. But what we saw very early is that you didn't need to have a epidemiologist PhD to be able to contribute, although we have an incredible group of epidemiologists that are helping guide us, you know, through this this challenging time. Really, it was a team effort, and every single member of our team, regardless of which college they may belong to, if they're in the administration, if they work for facilities, our student affairs team, and all of the incredible talent in that organization, was really, at the beginning of this crisis, we worked very hard to bring all of that expertise, all of that talent to bear on the problem. And that was a challenge in itself, because there's so much in there in trying to organize and make sure that the best ideas surfaced as quickly as possible, and that we were smart and agile enough to incorporate that into our planning. But I just, to answer the question, Mark, I guess is, we have spent a considerable amount of time, benefiting, of course, from CDC and DHEC's advice and guidance, but using our expertise within the university to try to create as safe and secure environment as possible.
Right. Dr. Ardis, what do you see from the operating budget standpoint? You probably sounds like prepared for the largest decrease in enrollment, and so that's got to hit the bottom line. I guess, how do you prepare for that?
Yeah, I think certainly, as I indicated, we began preparing very early in the spring with some budget scenarios for our Board of Trustees to look at. As a small private institution, we knew the impact would be immediate and relatively severe. This conversation really illustrates the differences in these institutions in terms of their size, scale, and capacity. Our institution is aligned very much like Ron articulated, with classrooms that scarcely hold more than 30 students. And so having to alternate those students to ensure social distance is sort of a logistic challenge for us, but one that we have managed, I think, rather effectively. The living spaces, as I indicated earlier, reducing to half capacity is a function of the fact that 90% of my students reside on campus. Unlike my colleagues at USC, we don't have students out in the community necessarily. They literally live on the campus, and most of them will live in what we refer to as doubles, triples, and quads. Well, that's not socially distant. And so we, by definition, had to literally cut our housing capacity in half. And so to sort of put it in context, for us, that represents about a $3.5 million loss per semester, starting with this fall on a $50 million budget. So from a scale and scope standpoint, the impact has been swift, and it has been quite severe on Benedict College's bottom line. Not to mention, obviously, as Ron articulated and Mark really touched on in terms of the human capacity challenges and the PPE. The need to provide, of course, masking and hand sanitizers, and most recently testing. So Benedict made the decision to test everybody because we are second only to a cruise ship in terms of close living quarters. It was important for us to ensure that as students began to come onto campus, we were able to test them and give our faculty and staff some confidence that we were not placing them in harm's way. I mean, very early on, we saw Chronicle of Higher Education articles from faculty saying, we are not cannon fodder. It is important that their safety be protected and preserved at all costs as well.
Great. That's the tough. All the safety precautions are so necessary, and we need to do them, but they all come at a cost. And how do we deal with that? So I guess along those same lines, we focus on the students so much when we talk about higher education, and yet at the same time in Columbia and in the Midlands area, our institutions of higher education are a huge employer and vital to our economy. I guess, as we discuss the operating budgets and the costs here, I'm interested to know, each of you, how many employees do you have, both from a faculty standpoint and from just a regular staff standpoint? And then do you anticipate any changes in these numbers as we move into the fall?
So at Benedict, again, we're the baby of the bunch. We had about 360 overall employees, 100 plus of which are faculty. We certainly did make some changes. We were beneficiaries because of our small size. We did benefit from the Paycheck Protection Program, which ensured our payroll for a couple of months at least and allowed us to not make any drastic changes in the way of a reduction in force. Unfortunately, at the conclusion of that program, we did have to look strategically across the institution at those areas that would not be as necessary given the capacity limits. And so some areas were reduced. We did have a small reduction in force already, and we anticipate another small one going into the fall just to ensure the institution's financial stability going forward. It hits a little harder when you're little.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mark?
Yes, sir. We at Columbia, we have about almost 8,000, but about 7,800 faculty and staff, with 2,500 of those being faculty, the remainder being staff. across the system, our other 7 campuses across the state, that number jumps up to about 10,000 faculty and staff. So that gives you kind of an idea of the order of magnitude. We have had to institute a furlough amongst our most, I guess, senior employees. We try to protect the employees with salaries that are at the kind of the lower third or lower half of the range. But we have had to institute a furlough, and really every unit, every part of the organization is working through cost savings measures as we speak. So it has had an impact on us individually. What we tried to do early on was set up this sort of phased return, so we didn't reoccupy the campus with all 8,000 of our staff and faculty at once, but we've been bringing them on basically a third at a time, and that's been working pretty well for us. Again, with the health, safety, and welfare of our people being preeminent in terms of our priorities, that has worked well for us in terms of taking care of our people. Now the real challenge, when the 33,000 or so of the students return back to campus, is the interactions amongst staff and faculty with that student body is going to be something we're looking very closely at. But we have had to institute this furlough. We did put one measure in place because we had the ability to do this, and that was to ensure those that were most at risk, either medically or maybe by age, had the ability to telework if they could, and kind of work some alternate modalities of performing their responsibilities for the university, based on their job and based on the supervisors, based on the organization's needs. So we try to apply a little bit of flexibility with our workforce, but really every single one of them are so important to the mission and to take care of our students. It's going to be a big challenge, come here August and September, bringing them all back together.
Yeah, at Midlands, we have about 1,200 employees. About a third of those are faculty positions. About half of our total populations are part-time or adjunct faculty. We've frozen hiring at this time, except for a few key faculty positions. We've also implemented across the board budget reduction. At this time, I don't anticipate any material changes in what we've done in terms of the employees for the current fiscal year, the fiscal year that just started. However, going forward, with the uncertainty with enrollment and the cost and how long the pandemic will be out there, I am certain that we have to take a look at our budget again. Probably like most institutions of higher education, your budget is about 70 to 80% of personnel costs. And so to really manage a budget, ultimately you have to look at the personnel section of your budget. And so we will be taking a look at that as we go forward.
Okay, great. Rose, is there a question that's come in?
Nope, no questions so far, Mark.
No questions. Okay, y'all are doing a great job. Your schools, as we just kind of touched on in the employment side, each of your schools play such a big role in our local economy financially. When you look at the off-campus housing and hotels, restaurants, entertainment, do you have a internal general estimate of the economic impact of your universities and students, or the impact of services and goods purchased? Do y'all have anything that y'all have that could be helpful to us from an informational standpoint?
So the United Negro College Fund, of which Benedict College is a member, did some economic impact work several years ago, actually 2 years ago, excuse me. It seems like a lifetime since pre-COVID, but did a little bit of economic impact work and estimated the overall contribution of Benedict on an annual basis to the economy to be about $30 million. in just the immediate area of Columbia surrounding our campus. And so obviously beyond our direct payroll and those kinds of things, the investments in the community made by people who live in and around it and work near Benedict. That's significant.
Right.
At University of South Carolina, we, based on a study conducted here just in the last, about the same time frame, we estimate there's about a 5.5 billion impact on the Palmetto State, really across all the system. Here in Columbia, we estimate it's about 4.1 billion, and that's based on years previous. Your question on goods and services, that estimate is about 1.8 billion impact locally. We definitely, with COVID and depending on how things work out this fall, we can clearly see there'll be an impact, on the community in terms of that kind of volume and that kind of scale. But we really haven't been able to give, good hard estimates on what they do. What we're hopeful is that, like everyone, things continue to improve to us, for all of us, slowly but deliberately, and create the conditions that we can probably never get back to normal, but get to this idea of a new normal, and hopefully be able to help sustain our community and our economy. Mark, one of the things I didn't mention earlier is that, again, early on in the process, we really shaped our plan by 4 guiding principles. And I've already mentioned the first: health, welfare, and safety of our people. The second one, and that applies to this question here, was the idea that we wanted to work very hard to limit and mitigate the impact of our physical presence on the community and the city of Columbia. So we worked really hard at trying to in place measures and risk mitigation protocols, I guess, that would help protect the community. Because we are in and among the community, we're living among the community, we're hopefully seen as a vital and a valued member of the community. But with that comes a responsibility for the university to make sure that we do everything we can to protect our friends and neighbors here. So we're working that very hard. A huge part of it is individual and social responsibility on our parts. But I just wanted to contribute that to the conversation as one of the areas we're really focused on.
Right.
Mark, we about 4 years ago commissioned a study of the economic impact of Midlands and the Midlands. And since our students come primarily from the local area, Richland, Lexington, and Fairfield counties, those are the communities that we serve. And that economic study looked at purchases by the college, payrolls, student purchases, just a general economic impact. And the number was $835 million, almost $1 billion impact on the local community of the college. And what's going to happen going forward, that depends on the students' decisions that they decide to upgrade skills or to come to college, those kind of things. But right now, I think in terms of the impact, it may be in the area of employees at the college as we take a look at the budget and those kind of things, but the impact may be minimal at this moment.
Okay.
Mark, can I jump in with one last point I forgot?
Please do.
Just in the way of looking towards the future, again, cautiously optimistic about how we all move forward together. We do anticipate that if things go well this fall, that we'll be able to restart our efforts at building this campus village, which is a huge investment in the community, upwards of about 240 million or so. And then in the spring, we believe that, and this will be about a year delay, we'll be able to restart our efforts towards our health campus, which is 360 million or so, somewhere in that. So 2 huge major investments that have been in the works for many, many years. We're very hopeful will be started back up again in 2021. Again, with all the unknowns and everything that we're all working through, but we have an amazing team led by our Executive Vice President for Administration and Finance that are working this very closely, and that's sort of our projection right now.
Right.
And It pays to have people who are smarter than you watching you. One of my staff just texted me and said, Madam President, it's 230 million, not 30 million. What are you talking about? So I stand corrected before all the world. Our economic impact is about 230 million a year.
Great. Rose, I'm going to come to you. I think you said you had gotten a couple questions or question in.
We do. I'm going to bounce around a little bit. Our first question was from Megan, and it was, how are you working with the City of Columbia to support campus and community health? And Kay Hampton, hey Kay, you quickly answered that. Kay's the Deputy Director of Economic Development with the City of Columbia, and said each of the colleges and universities have been working with us collaboratively. Way to go, Kay. You got a good plug in there for your hashtag Pledge Columbia campaign. There are lots of pledge campaigns about reopening safely. The Chamber has one as well. So Megan, I hope that answered your question. Robert, to everyone, Robert All, what are the criteria, this is for our panelists, that you will monitor relative to changing your current operating method, i.e. on campus, virtual, when to send students and staff home?
So we actually did tackle that one at Benedict, and we published it. The decision that we made, because we were populating the campus, was that when and if prayerfully, we reach a 5% infection rate on the campus. So as we were testing all of the students, if we hit a 5% infection rate, we will evacuate the campus and close. And the reason for that is contact tracing experience so far suggests that people are in contact with somewhere in the neighborhood of 15 to 20 people. Well, 5 times 20 is 100%. We risk 100% infection rate if we exceed 5%. So that's one benchmark. And the second is, for us, if we exceed 75% of our quarantine space, we can't wait till it gets to 100. We've allocated an entire building, obviously, to quarantining. And if we get to 75%, we know that we're trending the absolute wrong direction, and we will evacuate the campus and resume instruction fully online.
Great. Mark?
It's a great question. And we probably spent, well, early on, but especially the last 45 days or so in close coordination with DHAC, and it kind of echoes of the previous question that Rose answered, in close coordination with the City of Columbia and Richland County. We've been looking very hard at what not only our capacity here is on campus, but the capacity in the community to care for our people and to, again, limit and mitigate that spread of the virus. We have what we've established is, and I love Dr. Ardis and how she kind of coalesced that down into a couple key points or a couple key measures. We'll learn from that too. But what we've established is a safety alert matrix, which is kind of a level, 3 levels of safety, 1 through 3. Being currently in sort of in the current safety level right now, with about 15 interrelated criteria. Again, and this is all probably a little bit boring for this time of the morning, but very important measures across about 15 criteria that reflect our capacity to care for our people, the capacity to test, the capacity to trace, the capacity to quarantine. All of those are sort of organized in these 15 criteria. And it's really it's not any one that sort of supersedes the others, but it's the interrelationship of all 15 of these as we move through these alert levels that will allow us to recommend to the president a couple of sort of increased risk mitigation measures that we'll do either geographically or by individual student, by groups of students, to again try to push ourselves back down to the lowest level of this safety matrix. Once we start getting up into this alert or this safety level number 3 in a couple of these key criteria, that's when we'll be recommended to the president, to our board, that we need either go to online as a drastic measure, or potentially kind of shut down for about 2 weeks, go to online for about 2 weeks and try to reintroduce the face-to-face aspect. It's much more that I could describe in a couple minutes. I love the way, again, Dr. Ardis described their approach to it, but that's what we've got set up is an alert safety matrix across these criteria using, sort of the measures across the entire university to keep our campus safe.
Right.
Yeah, Mark, since we don't have the challenge of housing folk, our approach has been to focus on looking at the facilities. And this is why we're trying to guide students to come half and half on campus and half not on campus. And should we have to take a facility out or a classroom, having backup space, those kind of things. We do have the protocols and in terms of tracing and those kinds of things in place. Now, one of the things that we are doing early in the semester is to have 2 test days where we will say to faculty and staff without notice, we got to go online 100%, just to test our preparedness. We all did it back in the spring, and I think all of us did it very well. We learned a lot, and we're still learning, but we think that should the community decide that things need to shut down, the federal government, should we have an outbreak that affect the college as a whole. Again, we have 6 campuses in the service area. And so our approach it's going to be slightly different, and maybe we can accommodate students on another campus and those kind of things. But should we have to shut down for whatever reason, we are hoping that our faculty and staff will be prepared because of the practice that we are planning for them. That practice will be without notice to them, and so that they will have just a short time to be prepared to go teaching and learning, the services, all those kinds of things to go online.
Right. Mark, I'd like to come to you for a minute just for a little bit of a conversation about sports in the fall. And I know there's been some discussion kind of about the football season and what's going on there. Can you talk a little bit about that and what any information you can share about kind of attendance and it's a huge driver in the Columbia economy, from restaurants to hotels, and sort of what you anticipate there, and then also the other sporting activities for the fall.
Well, so I know that, it's a huge part of our conversation as well. Ray Tanner, our athletic director, has got an incredible team there that have been working this, really hard, again, since back in January and February when the crisis started. I think, most all the decisions are being made in close coordination with the SEC and the NCAA. And I think you've probably seen the announcements that from the SEC that they're going to work towards a kind of a conference-only football season. But Ray is working very hard, and again, he's being informed by our experts in the Arnold School of Public Health, in our School of Medicine, and our College of Pharmacy, giving him the best advice about the safest environment that we can create for our fans. We would love to get that number as high as possible, but we're being very, very careful and cautious so as not to not to create a overly risky situation to any of our fans or any of our people, period. It's just not worth it. So I think you've probably seen some of the estimates that have been moving around, sort of the open source media kind of thing. At about 20,000 or so is kind of what is being talked about right now. But even that number, I think, is going to be shaped by so many variables. The priority remains the health, safety, and welfare of our people. And when we say our people, we're meaning all of the people that we're either responsible for or that come into contact with the university. But I do, on your last point of the question, it's not just football that he's focused at, obviously. It's every sport, and we've been learning a lot across our athletic teams over the course of the summer as they come back for their summer conditioning and some of their summer practices. Every one of those teams have been teaching us a couple lessons about student behavior, about some of the protocols within our university, and it's making us better as we get closer to the first day of school. So we're really excited, and we're hopeful that the season is successful. But we're definitely planning for it to be safe.
Right. Dr. Ardis, you all have canceled fall sports, I believe. Is that correct?
We have the Southern Intercollegiate Athletic Association, which is our conference, canceled fall play for all of our fall sports, which made it a little bit easier for us as opposed to our having to make that decision as an individual institution. The leagues canceling, the conferences canceling the decision, canceling sports certainly made that a little bit easier for our athletes.
This is Ron. I would say that we're going to have an undefeated season in all fall sports at Midlands.
I like it. I like it.
I love it. One question that has just come in, can the folks that are dealing with campus housing, how are y'all treating guests in the dorms?
They're not welcome. I don't know how to say that nicely. Benedict has the luxury of being a very closed campus. We've got a guard gate, and you've got to pass through and be temped and that kind of thing, and you have to sort of state your business at the gate. We are not permitting visitors, unscheduled visitors to the campus this fall. Even during our move-in, we allowed each student one parent or guardian to assist them with moving in. We're really trying to limit traffic on the campus to the extent possible and create our version of a bubble.
Right. A little harder at USC.
Yes, we're definitely, we've instituted a couple of the obvious measures of face coverings, the social, everything we talk about. We haven't instituted a strict no visitor policy, but we are working, and the students each have a contract, of course, that they're signing, but the pledge as well that reflects many of the areas that we want them to be thinking about and to be careful with, and visitors is a huge part of that.
Right. I'm sure you all are operating off of a long-range strategic plan. How are you viewing this time? Is it simply a brief break in the execution of a longer-term plan that'll stay consistent? Or are you kind of stepping back and saying, this is revealing some issues that maybe we weren't aware of, and we need to reevaluate that? Have you gotten that far into the process that you're looking at things longer term beyond just the fall?
We are at Benedict, again, smaller and therefore can be a little more agile than perhaps some of the much larger, much more comprehensive institutions. What I have stated to my faculty and staff is the plan hasn't changed. How we achieve our goals has changed, not necessarily what those goals are. A couple of things have actually been accelerated by COVID-19. So we had plans to expand our online offerings. Well, that's certainly been accelerated. We've certainly had to move rather quickly in terms of expanding online. Investments in our infrastructure, obviously, were slated to begin. They had to be accelerated. And so to some extent, COVID-19 has really sped up the deployment of our plan. It also has brought to light a couple of other sort of unique things, things that we had not anticipated. For example, our faculty moved to open source mid-spring. And by that, I mean, they embedded all the links to the course materials in the course syllabi electronically for our students because our students were on spring break when we had to close. Many students left their textbooks in their dorm rooms and then were not able to come back because we closed the campus. And so our faculty worked very, very hard to embed the links within fair use, of course, and copyright. But what we learned is, that might be a new way to do things as we move forward in the online space and save our students the cost of textbooks. And so they worked really hard over the summer doing a lot of that kind of work, embedding course materials in our online format so that students would not have to purchase textbooks. That may be a new way of doing business when you think about it. So we've left ourselves open to adapting and may find ourselves better, stronger, faster as a result of COVID-19. I would not go so far as to suggest it's been a good thing, but I do think that institutions who keep an open mind about the way they do business and the way they distribute education will be far better able to navigate the challenges of COVID than those who insist on being in a much more rigid mindset.
Right. Mark?
I love the everything Dr. Ardis just said, and I appreciate her words. It reflects many of the conversations we've had internally here with our president, and got some kind of alarm going on. Maybe we go over to Dr. Rhames.
Rhames?
Yeah, okay, gladly. Our strategic plan's not changed. About 2 years ago, we adopted a new strategic plan, and the title of the strategic plan is Ensuring Student Success and College Sustainability. Now, because that is the focus of the strategic plan, we're having to really work on that student success in a different way, because we do anticipate, at least for the short term, students will be taking more online courses and virtual courses and those kind of things. And so that means something different. And part of our QEP process, this is part of the accreditation process, we have begun to focus on students that are taking online courses and their success rate. And so the resources that are needed to help them be successful are different than it is for the students that are in person. And the institutional sustainability part is vital. You know, public support for higher education, especially at the state level and at the federal level, are challenging at best. And so figuring out how to make sure that the institutions can survive and continue to meet its mission has been one of the priorities of our board of trustees and the institutional leadership at Midlands. So I would say in summary that our strategic plan has not changed. How we get there, it's already been said, is changing.
Right. Thank you. Mark, if you've got, hopefully that's just a drill, and don't feel like you got to stay there through the fire.
I think it's just a drill, but I don't want it to be annoying to the conference call.
We did have a couple questions that have come in on the chat. The calendar changes that y'all have discussed, eliminating some breaks, shortening the semester. Tell me what the logic was. Tell us what the logic was that went into that. Is it to simply keep them there, you know, eliminating breaks, keeping them there, you know, for a shorter period of time in order to get them off campus, you know, sooner, or kind of what was the logic in trying to do that versus a typical semester calendar?
Well, I think as Dr. Rhames stated in his comments early on, this thing is changing by the second. When we built our academic calendar back early summer for the fall, rebuilt it, I should say, we were doing that under the auspices of this notion of a second wave. The idea that perhaps the virus might be resistant to heat, but with cold and flu season coming on in fall, we might be anticipating a second wave. Unfortunately, we have yet to scale the first wave. But when we built it, the hope was that we could get these kids in and out of here safely before the onset of a potential second wave driven by weather, flu season, et cetera. And so that's why we accelerated. And certainly more than that, eliminating the breaks, the more that we can keep the kids stationary on the campus, again, we're a heavily residential campus, the less they're going home back into communities, coming back to campus repeatedly, bringing the risk of infection with them. And so the elimination of the breaks was driven for safety concerns, and the shortening of the semester was an attempt to respond to the idea of a potential second wave late fall.
Good. Mark?
Our alarm's still going. So can you hear that in the background? Or?
Well, yeah, we can hear it, but it's not distracting.
Okay. Well, same thing. We've been modeling the virus here on campus, really across all our campuses since about March. Again, using a team inside of our Arnold School of Public Health, a phenomenal group of epidemiologists. But their best predictions, along with DHEC's advice, showed exactly what Dr. Ardis described. And so based on that time, and trying to get some level of predictability for our families, we felt like a decision at about the top point in time early in the summer that we did would help in both areas, keeping our people safe, getting some predictability in there, but also providing us a little bit of a degree of agility or flexibility as we entered the academic year.
Right.
Mark, let me, we've not changed our calendar at Midlands, but what we've done is offer a greater number of mini courses or mini sections. So these mini sections will give us flexibility should our primary schedules change, should we need to shut down, should students, we find ourselves with an infection on one campus, we think by having the mini terms in place, these are terms within a term, if you will, that'll give us some flexibility in managing what's happening with our student body during the term. So because of that, and obviously because we don't have the on-campus student population, we think that that's going to give us a flexibility to react and to maintain some order in the teaching and learning process for our college.
Right. All great comments. I appreciate it. Thinking about, y'all have touched on some of the interactions and cooperation with the City of Columbia and the community efforts. And we know that the governor has implemented some statewide actions. Is there anything that you feel like is not being done that could be helpful to y'all as you get ready to enter into the school year? Any actions or measures that could assist y'all as you get prepared for the students coming back? That would be more of a state or local government type action.
I think, both the governor and certainly the mayor of the city of Columbia, Steve Benjamin, Steve in particular, has been very aggressive about ensuring that we mask up in Columbia. And I think we know that at this point, the evidence suggests that is the single greatest factor in stopping or slowing the spread of COVID-19. And so I think if all of our cities and municipalities in the Midlands region would be very consistent in that practice and in mandating masking. Initially, when Columbia passed its ordinance, I live in Northeast, and I overheard conversations in public spaces. Well, that doesn't apply to us. We don't live in Columbia proper. We're in Blythewood, or we're in wherever. And so I think if all of our cities and municipalities will be as firm and consistent in the masking requirements and the ordinances, I think it might be somewhat helpful to all of us, both for our employees coming in and out of the campus and certainly for students.
Right.
Again, I'd echo those comments, but I'd also add that I think that as a community, we clearly see this as we're in this together. This is one team, that everyone has individual responsibility in moving forward in this and trying to do it as safely as possible. I think if our community reflects that seriousness or that respect for the virus in terms of how they handle themselves individually or how they may operate their business or the social distancing around those areas, I think that'll impact our students as well. I think that'll have a real positive impact and impression on them, and also encourage them to do their part. So I think if we as a community, really work together, like we've been under Mayor Benjamin's leadership, I think we've got a real shot at doing this as safely as possible.
Yeah, and I would totally agree with everything that's been said. The community can really help us by adopting some consistent policies across the Richland, Lexington, and Fairfield counties for us. Individuals owning responsibility for masking, face covering, I think that really would make a huge difference in whether we are successful in having a full academic year without having to take students out of the classroom.
Okay, great. And then just we committed to keep this limited to an hour, and we're approaching that. So I guess the final question I would ask, in keeping with the chamber and our mission, is there anything that the business community can do to assist y'all students as we move into the school fall semester and helping everybody be successful? With anything the business community itself can do to assist?
Well, as the baby of the bunch and the one who's conceding losses at this point, certainly philanthropic support is always welcome. In kind or otherwise, Blue Cross Blue Shield was gracious enough to donate 5,000 masks yesterday. That was a big deal to Benedict College. And so as our community partners step up and really support and assist us during this difficult time, we are most appreciative. It makes a difference.
Great.
We would ask the business community just to continue to please recognize and appreciate the impact that higher education has on not only our local community, but the entire state, and in every venue or opportunity that you have, if you could promote or reinforce that that belief that higher education is doing the right thing for our people and for our state, that would be appreciated.
Yeah, I would add to that. I mentioned earlier about half our population is in our corporate and continuing education programs, and we will figure out how to help to provide the needs and the services and the training that businesses need. And so if you have a need, please don't hesitate to let us know about it. We're open and we're willing to figure out how to help the businesses, how to help the employees to become productive in this environment. And so I just want the community to know that we're here to help them.
Great. Thank you, everybody. This has been a fantastic conversation for us to have, and the higher education system in Columbia and the business community are in a true partnership, whether it's the economic drivers, whether it's the employment from the jobs, all the way down to the interns and in ways that we can interact with students in our businesses and provide them experiences and have them learn from us in the private sector. It's a great partnership for us to have, and we're grateful for each of y'all to be where you are today. We've seen a lot of competence and a lot of thoughtfulness and creativity that have gone into what you're doing, and we appreciate it and appreciate you sharing it with us. Carl, is there anything that you'd like to add to the group before we?
No, but I thank you all for being with us. I do want to give a shout out to General Todd McCaffrey, who joined today, who's new to USC. General, we're glad you're here. He's going to be working with strategic partnerships at USC, and so we're appreciative that you're here. Dr. Ardis, Dr. Rhames, Mark, Bieger, thank you very much. We really appreciate y'all's partnership with us at the Chamber.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Y'all have a good day. See you soon.
Thank you.